You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host, Keith Angle, on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody. Keith Angle for TGI Sports Talk. It's Sunday, the last day of January. I'll give you the weather report. Somebody commented on the vlog I did the other day that if they wanted a weather report, they'd go to the Weather Channel. It's just something I like to do. We're live here in East Greenbush, New York. We're the only, or at least the first, live streaming sportscast here in East Greenbush. And it's a cold winter day again, in the teens. Frigid last night. Pretty good snowstorm maybe on the way Tuesday. Anyway, that's your weather update for those that you want it, and some may not. But here we are. I want to again acknowledge. Good morning, Dave Guyette. First one in the room. Dave's very consistent. Just send you a prize, Dave. Thank all the groups that are liking and sharing and commenting on the posts. Again, if I post this to your group, I guarantee you there'll be some relevant content. So again, any problems, have the admins call me. But I want to thank everybody, the people who watch live, the people who do watch afterwards. We're up to on the live shows. So the two shows I do Friday with the interviews on Fridays, and this show, and the vlog that I do weekly, we're up to 10,000 views a week. And the followers are really starting to pile up. Good morning, Bill Pulver. How are you today? So the views are starting to pile up, 10,000 a week to all these. This is awesome. And the followers are starting to come along because I've learned something that I need to do. It's time consuming, but I don't really mind doing it. I go look. I belong to so many groups now to share these to, but I go through the updates and the notifications and see who's liked and shared the show and made comments, and I can go view and invite them all to become followers, and it's working. And so is our relationship with the NESEP, the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. Our relationship there has driven more viewers and more followers. So it's a great relationship back and forth. So if you guys haven't checked it out, there's a wide variety of shows over there. Everything from wrestling to there's an MMA show that's going to be starting, I believe. And you've got a fantasy football show. You've got a professional a show focusing just on professional football where we cover the gamut, right? Like Mac and Jack also covers the gamut. But anyway, check it out. Lots of good stuff there. Quick reminder, and I'll remind you guys during the week, I'll have my live show Friday. I'll have Roger Weiland and Ken Schott on, Roger from WNYT TV and Ken from the Daily Gazette. We're going to do our preview show here on Sunday for the Super Bowl 55. Gosh, we're getting old, guys. And Sunday, I will not do my show live, but I'll be on. So the Mac and Jack sports show that I guest on every Friday morning after my live show is going to do a 3-hour Super Bowl preview with coverage right from the Super Bowl from some of their reporters. But I'm going to be one of the co-hosts live for those 3 hours with Mac and Jack and also Robert Butler. Check him out. Check his show out on Northeast Streaming Sports as well. So we're gonna have a fun time, but I'll be streaming it or whatever I need to do. Watch party. I'll share it to my page. But guys, go to Northeast Streaming Sports. Go to Mac and Jack Sports. I'll try to keep an eye on the comments. I've been testing this out this week, and if I share it or I do a watch party, I can't always see the comments unless I'm keeping my eye on that watch party, which might be difficult as I'm hosting the show. So don't be afraid to go to Mac Sports, and I'll put the links in the video that day. So if you have comments and you want to ask questions during the show, we'll do the best we can. There's a lot of stuff going on, boy. There's a lot of people coming on the show that Mac's got lined up, so it's going to be fun. So that's next Sunday. And we'll talk more about that as the week goes on. This week, we got a lot to cover. We got some we'll touch on everything again this week. We'll start to wind down pro football, but not yet because we got Super Bowl Sunday to talk about. We'll talk a little bit about it today, but we'll talk more about it on Friday. A little bit of news in the NFL. We'll talk a little bit about the NFC and the AFC championship games. I want to talk about college football. I don't think there's much. I think I got one item I want to chat about, a couple items. Major League Baseball, there's some things going on. College basketball, I want to touch on. NBA very quickly. And we're going to really dive into the NHL a little bit today. At 10:30, my guest will be Jim Biringer, who hosts The Last Word on Hockey on Mad Radio, the Mad Radio Network. He'll be my guest about 10:30. He'll be on. He's playing hockey this morning, so he's going to do his best to get on at 10:30 or so. So we're going to go through all this stuff, and then we'll finish up the show with hockey. I've had quite a clamoring. I mean, maybe not my regulars who are in the room every Friday, but we've had quite a clamoring for hockey, and we're going to get into it. We probably will never cover it the way I cover the other sports. Not that I don't like hockey. I'm just a fair weather fan, man. It's hard for me to pay as close attention when the Rangers aren't good, and the Rangers certainly are not good right now. So, but we're going to talk with Jim about that, and we'll have him and some other guests. There's some other hockey shows, by the way, on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network or NESA. So anyway, that's where we're at. Welcome you all to the show. Oh, Rick, good morning. I did not see you jump in the room. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. We actually celebrated our Christmas, second Christmas yesterday. Some of the family that wasn't able to make it Christmas week because of some issues. We got together yesterday, had a great time. So it's been a good weekend. Let's start off with this football. So real quick, we got a great matchup, right? Next week, Chiefs and Bucks. I think the Chiefs are a 3-point favorite right now. The line started at about 4, and the Brady factor came in, and a lot of money coming in on Tampa Bay later. I'm sure that'll change during the week. But last week, the conference championship games didn't quite go as I expected. We'll start in the AFC. The Chiefs and Buffalo. Buffalo jumped out to a quick start, 9-0. But the Chiefs basically rolled after that. The Chiefs have been on autopilot all year, and they went 14-2. They're like 25-1 or something in Mahomes' last 26 starts. He didn't start the last game of the year that they lost. That their defense is underrated. They stepped up. They step up when they need it. Mahomes wasn't 100%, but he played great. The Bills, the game plan I thought was not good. They needed to find a way to run the ball a little bit. They needed to find a way to control the ball. Let's just say that. They don't need to run the ball, but too many plays downfield. Josh Allen is gonna be a great quarterback. He's not quite on Mahomes' level yet. He's great in his own way. But I said, leading into the game, that I really thought that the experience of the Chiefs, being in the AFC Championship game the last 2 games, being in the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl last year would play out. And I think that was the overall, the separation between the two teams. The Chiefs just outplayed them at every factor of the game. They were outcoached. Again, Chiefs are really good. They got a lot of weapons. They talk about the weapons in Tampa Bay, and we're only going to touch a little bit on the Super Bowl today. You guys have some questions or comments, you can certainly put them up, and we'll talk. We'll cover them as I try to do every week. But I think the Chiefs have as many weapons as the Bucks to be these weapons. But the Chiefs, until they get beat, they're the defending champions. And it's going to be hard to knock them off that pedestal. The Tampa Bay Green Bay game, A little bit different. Green Bay, I'll tell you, Green Bay should have won this game. Not just because I had a few shillings on them. What's very interesting, and it's funny because I spend a lot of time. Good morning, Drew. Yeah, Chiefs O-line's a bit makeshift for the game. Chiefs have worked around injuries a lot this year and last year, and I think they work around them better than most. They find a way to stay away from their weaknesses. They do a great job. Anyway, back to Tampa Bay and Green Bay. They, Green Bay shot themselves in the foot. Oh, what I started to say was, as much as I defend Tom Brady here, and I tell you Tom Brady's the GOAT, and I will continue to believe that until such time as somebody else takes that mantle away. He's going for a 7th Super Bowl win, guys. It's remarkable. But I bet against him every step of the way, and I'm losing money. It's really ironic that I've spent all these years a Tom Brady Patriot fan, and now that he's in the playoffs with a different team. And it's not that I'm rooting against him. I'm really not. I want to see Tom win. But I'm having trouble convincing myself that that's the way I should be putting my wagers. It's killed me. Saints fell apart. The Packers last week. Oh, my gosh. They should have won that game. I really think they should have won that game. Bad decision making. They put themselves in, so I've heard guys complain about the refs and, a lot of posts, obviously, that you always get about Brady gets all the calls. Well, Brady doesn't get all the calls. The NFL wanted Tom Brady to be their poster boy. They would not have had a witch hunt against him for 2 years and suspended him. But that's a different story. In this game, they let him play for most of the game. I mean, but you can't grab a guy's shirt. Well, let's back up a second. The Green Bay's last drive, they're down by 8 points. They get inside the 10-yard line. Yeah, I'm getting there. You got me twice, Billy. You're jumping out ahead of me. 3rd down and goal from the 8, I believe. And again, they didn't run the ball once. They threw the ball 3 times on this drive, or this series inside the red zone and inside the 10-yard line. But on 3rd down 8, Rodgers is bouncing around, and you go back and watch the view from the back. Billy brought it up here a second ago. If Rodgers looks to his right, he walks in the end zone, or at least gets enough yardage where they end up going for it, for sure, on 4th down. So that's mistake number 1. And I've got a friend who actually is one of my bosses, but he's a big Green Bay fan, but he's not an Aaron Rodgers fan because of things like that. He often won't take the simpler play and just look to make a spectacular play. Good morning, Mark Robert Shaw. I'll catch up on these comments in a second. And in that case, he did. The simple play was look to your right. You can walk into the end zone. I mean, he's not Lamar Jackson, and he's not even Patrick Mahomes, but he's not Tom Brady either. He walks into the end zone there. Mistake number 1. Mistake number 2, and probably even more egregious, is they kick a field goal. Down 8, 2 minutes left, maybe a little over. So they got timeouts. They got the 2-minute warning, I think, factored into that. Yeah, Drew talks about always forcing it to Adams no matter what. Right. I mean, I wasn't happy with the play calling on the Green Bay side at all, but to go for a field goal with down 8 inside 2 minutes, and Tom Brady, regardless of who it is, to be honest with you, if you got a decent offensive football team, you can't give the ball back to him. For a couple first downs, the game's over, and much less the greatest quarterback of all time. So you can't put the game in the hands of your defense when your best player is your quarterback. Best player is the quarterback. You've got to go for it on 4th down there. I don't care. If you don't make it, you don't make it. So what? You're still going to kick the ball. Or you're still going to give the ball back to Tampa Bay, and they're going to have it at the inside the 5-yard line, inside the 8-yard line, wherever they end up. And you still have to stop them, and now you need a touchdown. Guess what? You still needed a touchdown. You need a touchdown when you get the ball back either way. Yes, a touchdown would have won the game. Just not a good call in my mind. A lot of people will look at it differently. I don't think the people here are. Billy's talking about Rodgers doesn't run for the touchdown, which I talked about. Rick mentions if it came out of the locker room at halftime. I'm not getting into that, Rick. As I said on my show, I separate all that stuff. I don't care what they do. I watch the sports. I can separate the two. A lot of people can't, and that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their opinions, and I've heard so many friends tell me, I'm never watching football again. I'm done. They're protests, blah, 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 blah. And then, I see them commenting all day on Facebook about games. They just happen to go through when all the big plays happen. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that whole thing. I will say this. I mean, the whole national anthem thing, if it was so important, how come for 40 years it never got even shown on the TV networks, never showed it? I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just talking about, some of the hypocrisy that goes on, and not to call anybody's opinion hypocritical here, but I'm talking about more, sorry, I want to see if that was our guest later. I'm just talking about more, from an overall league and network, the way the networks cover it, for instance. The networks didn't cover the national anthem for years, except for maybe the Super Bowl, until this all, started up 3-4 years ago. But anyway, I don't want to focus on that. That's not what my show's about. My show's about the sports, and I can separate it, and I will continue to do so. I lost a couple friends, to be honest with you. Not lost them, I don't think, but whatever. We don't communicate because they don't agree. I don't know why we can't agree and still be friends, but that's fine. That's how life goes. Anyway, where was I? You talked about forcing the ball into Adams no matter what. Again, too much reliance on three guys, right? Adams, Rodgers, and you're talking about Davante Adams. I'm thinking of I'm thinking of running back now. He got hurt. What's his name, Drew? That hurt Green Bay too, by the way. Getting banged up early also hurt me. Billy wants to give Tampa Bay credit for clock management, the first down, the end of the game. I agree. They did a great job. Green Bay fans were up in arms about the pass interference or defensive holding call, whichever was the final analysis there. I don't remember which it ended up being. It doesn't matter. It ended up being a first down. But, whether Aaron Jones, thank you. I always do that. I got Adams in my mind about Aaron Jones. Yeah, so the too much reliance, definitely for Rodgers, too much reliance on Davante Adams. Anyway, where was I? Lost my train of thought. The call at the end of the game, guys. You know what? Yeah, they let him play back and forth. They gave him plenty of leverage all day long, and let calls go, pushing back and forth, and it was on both sides. Green Bay fans think it was all on Tampa Bay. I watched the game. Guys, watch the whole game. Don't just watch the game and pay attention to the things that happen against your team. Pay attention to the whole game. It went on both ways. And you can't let that call go like you let every other call go, because the guy had his jersey, stretched it out. There had to be a 2 or 3 foot gap, maybe more, between the defensive guy and the wide receiver. And again, I don't recall exactly who they were, but it's irrelevant. But you can't not make that call there. I mean, that'd be egregious, right? So look it. You let the referees beat you, it's your fault. You know how I feel about this. Clock management we talked about. Billy says, One guy makes that decision, Bill, about the field goal. That's the head coach. You can't do that. Not there. Rick laughing about Rodgers. I know he's happy Rodgers left. Aaron Jones. Eric Fisher, big loss. Yeah, there's some. Look at every team's banged up. You get to February 7th when the game is, right? Every team that's gotten there has been practicing and playing, and not to mention that this year's even worse with COVID and whatnot, but everybody's going to be banged up. Everybody talked last week that Mahomes' situation was going to be a difference maker. God, Rick, look at the replay. Look at the replay, how far that jersey was pulled backwards. What's 2 feet? That? Guarantee it was pulled that far. I could be wrong, but whatever. It's obvious. The point is that the penalty is so obvious in that case, you cannot just let it go. Can't do it. Can't do it. And again, look at we haven't had this show that long. Some of you that watch me now, think that I'm might be a Brady booster or a Patriot booster, and I always make whatever. I have bashed the Patriots and Tom Brady for lots of things. I feel like I'm pretty. Can't think of the word I want to use, but I'm not a homer. Yeah, I'll tell you if I think the Patriots got away with something. It was a Haynes jersey. He should use one of those ones that are like, on stretch. Is COVID the reason for a week delay in a Super Bowl? No, there's 2 weeks normally between the Super Bowl all the time. I believe it was scheduled. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was scheduled for the 7th all along. It's possible the start of the season was delayed a week, but I don't think it was. So anyway, there's always 2 weeks between the Super Bowl. By the way, last week, guys, no COVID situations in any of the games for the players or any fans that I'm aware of. So that's a good thing. So anyway, you end up with Tampa Bay and Kansas City. Some great storylines, right? 2 really high-powered offenses. A quarterback who has set the standard to be chased forever. As far as you can, whether Tom Brady's a GOAT is subjective, I guess. If you count winners, how you can't say he's not, especially if you win Sunday. But he's playing against the guy who, if there's somebody who has a chance to chase him down and potentially approach some of these records, it's possibly Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. These guys are still pretty young for the most part. Well, Mahomes certainly is. They got a great coach, although he will not be able to be around for the type of longevity that Patrick Mahomes will need probably to chase down Tom Brady. I'm not really sure how old Andy Reid is, but he's not a spring chicken, and I don't see him coaching 10 more years or 15 more years, or whatever it's going to take. But he will win a bunch of Super Bowls unless something, life gets in the way, fate gets in the way, destiny gets in the way, injuries, free agency changes things. But if there's a team that's set up to maybe give the Patriots dynasty a run, the Kansas City Chiefs are it. So we'll see. Lots to talk about. It tied into the championship games. And, I have to tell you, I'm not a huge Aaron Rodgers fan myself. He's a great player. Aaron Rodgers can do things on the football field that I never saw done before Patrick Mahomes came along. As great as Tom Brady is, he can't do some of the things Rodgers has done. But now Rodgers is What has he lost? 4 NFC championship games. He's won 1 Super Bowl. But more to the point is the comments he makes after the game about, they got asked about the future and whatnot, and he comments that, who knows, a lot of people's future are up in the air in his team. Well, he's got a contract. Is he going to force a trade? Aaron Rodgers whining about them drafting a quarterback last year, not giving me enough weapons. Well, you know what? Maybe you give up some of your money. Listen, one of the reasons, again, the Patriots were successful for as long as they were is Tom Brady deferred lots of money. Took less money. Tom Brady was never, until the last few years, among the top paid quarterbacks in the game. Because he did, and I'm not saying he wouldn't get his money eventually, but he'd take less so they could bring in better players to surround him with. And as he got paid more money the last couple of years, you could see how the talent pool would dry up. Well, if Aaron Rodgers wants better weapons, then take less money. There's a perfect solution, Aaron. More big words. What's Mark got here? He's still Mark when he was ump for our games. You were consistent, called the high strikes and teams, but yeah, right. Okay, I get it. Talk about the referees. Andy's only 62, Mark says. Well, that's young today, but Belichick's, certainly 10. I think he's going to be 10 years older than that this year, or close to it. But you remember something. Bill Belichick started that run when he was 50. So Andy Reid really started his run when he was 60. With the Chiefs, I mean. So, I don't know. I'm not saying he could stay around. Andy Reid's a lifer. I mean, I don't see, they probably have to peel him off the sideline as long as his health stays okay. But again, if Reid stays and Mahomes stays, and that team's going to be competitive, and they're one team that I could see approaching some of the heights that were reached by a certain team the last 20 years. Back to Rodgers, I'm not a fan of him whining about the fact that the team won't bring in the weapons he needs. He's part of the problem, There's a salary cap in the NFL. Don't take so much money. You can help your team. Rick wants him to retire. He's a big whiner. I keep forgetting to share you guys' posts. We'll start here. Retire, you big whiner. Aaron Rodgers is a great player, but Aaron Rodgers sometimes is his own worst enemy. Maybe he'll go to Jeopardy and become the permanent host, Rick, and you'll have to see him. Well, unless you don't watch Jeopardy. I guess you wouldn't have to see him every night. I guess I would turn you off if you are a Jeopardy fan. You probably would stop watching if Aaron Rodgers somehow got the job. All right, a couple other notes in the NFL, guys. I want to keep moving along because at 10:30, again, we do have Jim Biringer coming on from The Last Word in Hockey. We're going to get up to date on what's going on with the hockey season. Lots of changes there, by the way, with the scheduling and whatnot because of all the teams in Canada and change divisions around. And I want to kind of get caught up a little bit, and, we'll talk about some other stuff. A couple other things. Since we're talking about it, Petin, Mike, again, I probably say his name wrong, whatever. Mike Petin fired as defensive coordinator for Green Bay after that game last week. Probably rightfully so. I'll get to the Goff situation here in a second, Drew. Again, horrible call, horrible defense. Brilliant play call by Tampa Bay at the end of the first half. Big play in that game. And much like the Jets at the end of a game against the Raiders, you can't let guys get behind you in that situation. You can't have one-on-one coverage. So anyway, that one play probably got him fired. Just to touch on a couple of things, Tom Brady's dad, I think, needs to be drug tested, just my opinion. He seems to think Bill Belichick is on a hot seat. Tom needs his dad to step away and be quiet for a while. He's done these things for years. And, now that it is his, his prediction that Tom wouldn't end his career as a Patriot. He's emboldened. Now he knows everything that's going on in Patriot land, apparently. No, Bill Belichick is not on a hot seat. You pay attention, Tom Sr. I'm not even sure if his name is Tom Sr. Sorry. I don't really care. Jason Witten retired this week, guys. Zach Ertz is not going to return to the Eagles. Big news yesterday. Huge news. Drew just talked about it here. Matthew Stafford. This is an interesting trade. Partly I like it, partly I hate it. Matthew Stafford traded to the Rams for Goff, a 2021 third, a first-round pick, and actually the first one I wrote down was in 23, Drew. You got 22 and 23. The first one I wrote down was in 23, but that I could be wrong. Regardless, it's a lot to give up for Matthew Stafford, number one, who is a decent quarterback, but the Patriots had interest. I don't think the Patriots ever had the pieces they could trade to get him. But this trade, I'm confused from both sides. I get Detroit, I guess. I mean, Goff may not stay there. Who knows? They may move him again. But Detroit obviously knows they've got a few years of rebuilding ahead of them with their new coach, Dan Campbell. The draft picks will certainly played into this a lot. They do get a starting quarterback to replace Stafford if they believe in Goff. I've always been kind of up and down on Goff. I don't think he can, he's not a guy who's going to take a team on his back and carry him anywhere. It's just, it's a matter of whether, the Rams are good. The Rams have got a lot of talent, and they're in a position to win a Super Bowl, but the quarterback play has not been up to par, or they haven't put Goff in the right position to succeed. Stafford's had great numbers. He's had injury issues at times during his career. He's 10 games at least under 500 for his career, never won a playoff game. 33 years old, I think, when the season starts next year. Before the season starts next year. So it's an interesting trade, and we're going to see what happens here. We can analyze it all we want. We'll analyze it more as we get closer to, the draft and all that. We talk about teams and some moves that have been made. But I think it's interesting. It's an interesting move. We're going to see what happens. If you guys have some opinions, put them up. But I'm a little mystified, to be honest with you, that the Rams would give this much up for Matthew Stafford. I don't think any other team would have given up this much for Matthew Stafford. He's 32, but I think he'll be 33. I think he'll be 33 at some point during the season next year, Drew. You can look up his birthday. I'm not positive. Actually, I might have... it might be a note I wrote down about somebody else, but I thought I read he'd be 33 during the season. It's possible not. Either way, 32 years old. He's got a very friendly contract. He's only signed through 2022, I think. So they got 2 seasons contract-wise. So it's going to be interesting. It's an interesting development and warrants watching. I'm interested to see if Goff stays in Detroit or they move him again. You got the whole Deshaun Watson thing officially demanded a trade. The team says they will not trade him. The new coach, Tully, took the job with the assumption that Watson would be the quarterback. That's what management told him. I'm not a big fan of these guys. Again, he's getting paid a lot of money. Go to work, do your job. I understand he wants more. Okay. Again, same thing as with, Aaron Rodgers. Give some money back. He's upset he wasn't consulted on the hiring of the new GM. Well, Why should you be consulted? You're a player. People get paid to hire those people. You're paid to play football, right? Before I was in management in my company, right? They didn't come to my opinion to ask who they wanted me to be my boss. or decisions on who we should hire to be the president of the company. Come on, guys. I don't think Deshaun Watson's going anywhere because I don't think anybody's going to give up. I don't think anybody's going to give up what they want. Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson. How did I get Mark Jackson out of Mark Robertshaw? Sorry about that, Mark. Mark feels Detroit wins this trade, I think. I guess that's what this means. So anyway, some interesting developments here in the NFL. More to come. One other quick note, Senior Bowl. Huge week, by the way. This is one of the biggest weeks. The Combine's going to be so messed up that the Senior Bowl is always important. It's one of the biggest. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Of the actual bowl games that they play in the college football, probably the third most important one or fourth most important one behind the semifinals and the final is the Senior Bowl. Because these kids, the NFL puts a lot of stock in what happens during this week in Mobile, I think they play. Because they get to practice against the best. They get to play against the best in the game. It's those practices that matter. Now they're playing against top caliber players. You know, they watch these guys play their college careers, and it's great. They put up all gaudy numbers, a lot of guys. But there's a lot of really good players that you wouldn't even think about that boost their stock in during that week of the Senior Bowl. A couple guys I read about this week that really improved their stock was Kellen Mond from Texas A&M, quarterback. A lot of teams came away very impressed with his week of practice, and I believe he played very well in the game. Sam Ehlinger from Texas improved his slot a little bit. So did the North Carolina running back Baxter. So these are some of the guys that have, again, some guys go there and improve their stock and make a lot of money by, by going to that Senior Bowl, working hard, practicing hard, playing well during the game, which is important as well. But that week of practice is huge. So I think it was a big week for a lot of those guys. And while we're talking about college, the only other note I wanted to make here besides college, the Senior Bowl was Josh Heupel was hired at Tennessee. He was coach of UCF the last few years, Central Florida. Replaced Scott Frost there. And did a good job, although some people feel the program has been sliding backwards from their high points. No, Mac Jones did not improve his slot. And again, I've said all along, I don't think Mac Jones is going to be a high caliber player in the NFL. I just don't. He feels like a guy who benefited from the tremendous weapons around him. You know how I feel about Devontae Smith. You know how I feel about Waddle. I don't disagree with Billy that Najee Harris is a great player. I think that's what drove Mac Jones' success at Alabama. Not that he's not a decent player, and he'll probably, I don't know that he'll ever be a starter in the NFL, to be honest with you. He'll probably be a good backup somewhere. But back to Heupel, he gets the Tennessee job after Jeremy Pruitt got fired. There's some issues there with recruiting and whatnot. So that's the news there. I don't know if it's a good hire for Tennessee or not. Tennessee's had their issues with coaches recently. You know, they hired. He had, as it turns out, he didn't do such a bad job after the years they've had the last few years. After they fired him, it was a mess. They hired Greg Schiano, and then they fired him, or didn't fire him, but they didn't go through with the hiring because the fan base was up in arms. Fan base in Tennessee thinks they got a program like Alabama, and they don't. They could, but they don't. So anyway, that's it. Done with college football. Done with pro football for this week anyway. The Java water isn't doing it. Someone get Keith a Java. Oh, I got it. I had a little frog there, Bill. I had to clear my throat. Thank you for your concern, though. I do appreciate it. If I should ever look like I'm choking or like maybe my face hits the desk, I hope one of you guys would call 911. I can give you my address out. You don't have to give it out here on the show, but somebody could share it if I went face down on the desk. Major League Baseball. What's the big news this week? Hall of Fame we'll touch on in a second. JT Realmuto re-signs with for 5 years, $118 million, I believe, with the Phillies. Phillies also signed Didi Gregorius. I was really holding out hope somehow Didi made his way back to New York, but not to be. Once they signed DJ, it's going to be hard to move Torres off shortstop. But I was hoping. I'm a big Didi fan. So good moves, I think, by the Phillies bringing both of those players back. Mets still in talks with Trevor Bauer. I think it's a bad move. I think it's a really bad move bringing Trevor Bauer in here. Especially after the deal with the GM. They've looked into Trevor Bauer is very active on social media. And it's not all good, guys. So, and now with Steve Cohen now having a little battle over the whole GameStop thing and going back and forth with some of the geeks who, managed to tank the market this week. Getting death threats from people for his family. I mean, guys, enough. So I don't know. If I'm the Mets, I don't know if I want to add Trevor Bauer to that mix, man. He is wound tight. He's had issues in Cleveland. He had issues with Mickey Callaway, which actually could help the Mets, I think, because Callaway's with the Angels now, and they don't like each other. So actually, Callaway being with the Angels is eliminating one potential suitor for him. But I would not bring it. If I'm the Mets, I don't bring him in. I do consider Jackie Bradley for sure for the center field job, though. But Jackie Bradley's still out there, and Jackie Bradley's a very good player. Very good defensive player. Maybe not as good as he was a few years back. But again, you don't have to sign him to a long-term contract. Drew and I were talking about this yesterday. When did 4 and 5 years become short term? Sign Bradley for 2 years. You got a good player. They also traded Steven Matz to Toronto, giving up. I don't know. I haven't looked that heavily at the prospects that they got back, but I guess it was time for a change of scenery for Matz. It never worked out. He was a top prospect, and great things were expected of Steven Matz. And it's a shame it didn't work out, but he's off to Toronto. What else we got in baseball going on? Oh, big trade at Colorado and I don't even know all the particulars of this trade. Who's going back to Colorado? I tried to look this up this morning and I wasn't getting. Yeah, you know what? They didn't have to put up any money. I wish I was a geek too, but they cost me money this week. That's my problem. So anyway, that's how the market works. Big trade with the Cardinals and the Rockies. The Cardinals get somebody who has been one of the top. Hang on one second, guys. I gotta check something out here. Nolan Arenado, one of the top, certainly top defensive third basemen in baseball, and offensively, he's still good. He's not 39 years old yet. He will be, I believe, in spring training or after the season starts, shortly after the season starts. Yeah, it's not official yet, but everything I keep reading is it's just a matter of time. But there's a lot of money getting passed back and forth here, and that's the thing that bothers me. Is the $50 million. This is the problem with these big contracts, guys. You're going to see more and more of these trades because some of these markets cannot sustain it. I mean, the Rockies can't pay Nolan all that money and steal and be able to put a decent team around him. Hard enough to build a good team in Colorado, at least the pitching staff, because of the factors, the other factors that are involved there. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. It's it'd probably be a great trade for St. Louis. I do think he's got some good years left in him. I mean, I don't think he's been as good offensively as he was a few years back, but he's still young enough to bounce back. And it'd be interesting to see what his numbers are outside of playing on a stadium a mile high. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Very interesting, though. I think that trade, and again, it's the money that really gives me some, cause for concern there. Another note. Let's see if there's any other. What do we got here? Drew's talking about, a bunch of prospects, and also I think there's $50 million changing hands as well. That's the big part of this trade. I don't know. It bothers me, but it is what it is. Good information, Drew. One other baseball note right now I want to talk about is Masahiro Tanaka will not be a Yankee any longer. It's a little big. I guess I got to get that off of there, Drew. He's officially going back to Japan to play for the Golden Eagles. I won't even try to say the name of the place he's playing. I could probably do it. I wrote it down. I figured it out. I'm not going to say it. His former team, the Golden Eagles, in Japan. But interestingly enough, on his way out the door, he makes a comment that, basically he has unfinished business in America, and he hopes to be able to finish that business, which would maybe leave the door open for a return to America and maybe return to the Yankees. Listen, was Tanaka worth the money the Yankees paid for him, the posting money, the contract? I think so. The guy was durable. The guy hurt. Remember, this is a guy who tore part of his, Ragatuni. That's the way I wrote it down. It's very funny, Drew. I actually wrote it down exactly that way, and I decided not to even. The Golden Eagles. Nobody knows where Ragatuni is. It's in Japan. You got to remember something about Tanaka. Tanaka tore, and I believe it was his. Oh gosh, he tore a tendon in his forearm. I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't always remember which tendon it is, and it doesn't matter. But he partially tore this, and most pitchers would have had surgery, and the thought was he was going to. And he decided to let it rest, holistically heal it. I don't know exactly what he did, but he pitched with his torn tendon for the duration of his time with the Yankees. And he basically didn't miss. Well, he missed some time when this first happened, this injury. But he basically took his turn every time out after the initial injury. He'd have his ups and downs. But again, we talk about eating up innings and blah, 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 which I'm not always a fan of the term, because if you're just eating up innings with bad pitching, I don't know how that's helpful. Save your bullpen, but still. But he did eat up innings, and he did it well for the most part. He'd have days where his sinker didn't work, and he'd get hammered. But I'll tell you what, until this year, he was lights out in the playoffs. Those big lights, the big stage was on, the lights lit it up, and Tanaka stepped up. A lot of guys don't step up in that situation. He always did. He always did. So did the Yankees get his money? Did I say at Holiday Inn Express last night? I should have. I probably could have done the surgery if I did. If I'd stayed I could have done surgery and probably saved his career. And maybe he'd be, not going to the Hall of Fame. Indigestion if you eat up innings with bad pitching. I agree there, Drew. It's one of the terms I always hated in baseball. Innings eater. Innings eater? What? If the guy's giving up 5 runs every 9 innings, that's his ERA. Well, what do I need that guy eating up innings for? But Tanaka did it in the right way. And Tanaka was a gamer. And Tanaka, I think deserves everything that he got, and it's a shame they couldn't bring him back, I think. But again, they're appear to be steadfast in staying under the salary cap, and not paying a luxury tax this year again. Yankees got hurt with COVID. All the Major League Baseball teams did. Yankees got hurt as bad as anybody. So that's unfortunate. But again, I wish him well, and I hope he does well. Let's move on to a little more controversial topic. You guys may or may not like my take here. I think I know where Drew stands. I think we had a quick conversation about this yesterday. The Hall of Fame voting was this week. Nobody got in. Curt Schilling got 71% of the vote. Yeah, I wasn't going to jump in here. Yes, real quick before I go to that, I guess, because, again, we're going to cover baseball a lot more once football's over. We got one more week. Spring training's not here yet. All the free agents haven't signed yet, so all the pieces aren't in place. So I'm not ready to talk too deeply into who's going to do what this year, but we're going to be doing a lot of that. Toronto did a great job. Toronto's loaded to compete in the East, definitely. San Diego did a great job. The Mets have done a good job. So it's going to be interesting. And they're not done. There's a lot of guys out there yet, and they're probably these teams are going to get even better. And the Yankees have really not done a lot except keep DJ. They brought in some question marks for the pitching staff, yes, and if they work out well, it'll be fine. But if they don't, it won't. So I wasn't going to give you demerit points for your spelling, Drew, so don't worry. All right. Let's back to the Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame voting this past week. Curt Schilling, 71% of the vote, does not make it. I think Barry Bonds and Clemens were in the low 60s-ish. They got one more year left on the ballot. Very unlikely either one of them is going to get in. Curt Schilling, probably not going to get in, mostly because of his personality and his political views. Guys, you know how I feel about this stuff. He wants his name taken off the ballot. I hope they don't do that. It's a bad precedent. Leave your name on the ballot. Do I think Curt Schilling belongs in the Hall of Fame? I'm torn. Because again, I'm looking this. I don't like Curt Schilling. And again, I don't necessarily disagree with all his politics, but I don't like the way he presents them. But Curt Schilling's got a lot of things going on in life, just like we all do. His wife's battling cancer right now. So he's a human being like anybody else. He didn't have a good reaction. Does he belong in the Hall of Fame? I don't know. It's hard to look at the numbers. It used to be easy, right? You win 300 games, you get in the Hall of Fame. Well, Curt Schilling only won 216 games, I think. Struck out a lot of guys. Had a pretty long career, but not a lot of great years. But I'll tell you one thing Curt Schilling was a great postseason pitcher. One of the best. One of the best. Again, what you think is a Hall of Famer is subjective today. And it's become the Hall of Good. The Hall of Fame voters have always loved longevity and things like that. Compilers, 300 wins, 500 home runs, 600 home runs, played 25 years. But it's become more the Hall of Good than the Hall of Fame. It's not the best of the best anymore. Harold Baines. Look at Harold Baines is in the Hall of Fame. And Barry Bonds is never going to be. Now, I don't agree with what these guys did. And this ties into Pete Rose as well, by the way, guys. And going all the way back to Joe Jackson. The Hall of Fame isn't full of good people. Let's just stick on Schilling for a second. If you think he shouldn't be in because he's a bad person or bad guy, you don't agree with his political views or whatever, I think that's nonsense. You can't keep a guy out because of that. The Hall of Fame is full of racists, horrible people. Ty Cobb is one of the worst people ever to walk the face of the earth. He's in the Hall of Fame, as he should be. As should be Pete Rose. I'll compare Rose. Let me say Schilling. If you're only basing it off of personalities, well, then he belongs in the Hall of Fame. If you got some beef with his record or whatnot, well, fine. But I guarantee you the people that have voted against Curt Schilling have basically done it because of his political views, and that's just wrong. I don't care which way they are, by the way. That's irrelevant. Now, the other cases are a little bit more problematic. Yes, Ty Cobb was nasty as hell. He's a racist. He was a drunk. He was whatever. Babe Ruth wasn't the best person to walk the face of the earth. God knows how many games he played drunk or hungover. Womanizer. Great player. Changed the game. Everybody in sports today. I have this argument when they did the Sports Century series on ESPN. Great player, Babe Ruth. Every player today owes Babe Ruth a tip of his cap. In all sports. Babe Ruth saved baseball after the 1919 Black Sox scandal. And he also started making a lot of money. And baseball was king. And football followed, and basketball followed. And all these guys who are making a crap load of money today, they all owe something to Babe Ruth. I'm off topic a little bit. LT and Michael Irvin in football. Well, again, great examples. I'm not sure in the Baseball Hall of Fame, but it's still relevant in football, right? They're great players. They belong in the Hall of Fame. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, and Pete Rose all had different issues, but not all different issues. Pete Rose had different issues than Bonds and Clemens. But Bonds and Clemens were Hall of Famers before they started using performance-enhancing drugs. Pete Rose is one of the greatest players ever to play the game. He did more with less talent than anybody. How can he not be in the Hall of Fame? And the Hall of Fame's a bit hypocritical anyway, because Pete Rose is all over the Hall of Fame. If you go to the Hall of Fame, it's hard to go to a room where he isn't there. A ball's there, his jersey's there, whatever. A bat's there. Pete Rose is in the Hall of Fame. And I say you put all of these guys in. All of them, warts and all. And put it, make it known. Here's your plaque, Pete. A-Rod's coming up too. Good point. I don't know how you keep him out. Sammy Sosa, we had this conversation yesterday. Drew's dead set against Sammy Sosa. Well, Sammy Sosa hit 600 and I don't know how many home runs. How many guys have hit over 600 home runs? 5? 4? Bonds, Aaron, Mays, Sosa, maybe McGuire. I don't know how you keep them out, but you put them in. You put all these guys in, and you put on their plaque. Their career was enhanced by using performance-enhancing drugs. Pete Rose bet on baseball, banned for life. They still belong in the Hall of Fame. It's part of the history of the game. And these are great players. You know, the other thing, and I think we talked about this yesterday too, the thing with Bonds and Clemens specifically, and A-Rod to a certain extent, is who knows who was we don't know who was using, who wasn't. We know a lot of the guys that were, but we don't know all the guys that were. I don't know how many guys they competed up against each night that were on the mound that were also using performance-enhancing drugs, but it didn't enhance their performance enough. in Bonds' case, and vice versa for Clemens. How many hitters while he was? Well, 8 players had more than Sosa's 609. Well, that's 8 players in the history of baseball. 9 players in the history of baseball have 600 home runs. How many of those aren't in the Hall of Fame? Well, not counting A-Rod, and don't know where McGuire finished up. They got to be the guys I missed. I was thinking about the old timers. I've had old timers on my mind a lot lately. So again, I don't know. With all the times that Clemens was out there using performance-enhancing drugs, how many guys did he come up and face that also were? Yeah, see, I forget about. Oh God, that's too funny, right? It's funny. I forget about Pujols and Griffey. Tomei belongs in the Hall of Fame. These guys are all deserving of being in the Hall of Fame. Mays, yeah, I was trying to figure out who May was, but I think he left the S off. So Mays, yes. So anyway, that's my take there, guys. They belong in the Hall of Fame. I'll probably do a vlog on this maybe this week. You know, it's funny when the Major League Baseball made the decision to include the Negro League stats in the official baseball records, and they've got some digging to do to decide, you know, what counts, what doesn't. McGuire 583. Mark McGuire will never make it to the Hall of Fame. I guess 500 home runs isn't such a big deal anymore. I remember when a 500 home runs was automatic, much less 600. What was I talking about? Oh, the Negro League stats. Negro League stats. You know, they're going to do some research to decide, you know, which games, you know, they some of them they have to throw out, I guess, but it's going to be interesting. I mean, Josh Gibson may be the all-time home run king. But I think enough of his will probably be disregarded that he won't be. But I really was hoping, because Henry Aaron played in the Negro Leagues before he came to Major League Baseball, and I was really hoping that he'd hit whatever he needed, 8 home runs, 9 home runs to pass Bonds and become the Major League home run king again. But he only had 5. I may have talked about this last week. He only had 5 that I noticed, and who knows if all of those will count. So anyway, that would have been nice. Again, I think Barry Bonds belongs in the Hall of Fame. Do I think Barry Bonds is a wonderful guy? Nope. There's some interesting guys coming up. And again, Drew, you make a great point that now I don't know how the voters are going to look at Big Poppy. I think it's Big Poppy. And A-Rod but there's been other guys that have been ignored because of even though they were never proved they use it, they've been ignored. Bagwell, Sosa we talked about. Mike Piazza did get in, but there were rumors about him. So anyway, it's going to be interesting. And I doubt Bonds and McGuire are getting in next year. Or Bonds and Clemens are getting in next year. Not going to happen. I just can't see them making the jump to 75% next year. But I think history will look at them kinder. And at some point when the Veterans Committee is not – actually, I think they have 2 different committees now. You know, the Veterans Committee was always made up of a bunch of old-timers who were very, very intolerant of all of this stuff. And also very protective of the Hall of Fame. But then they allow Harold Baines in. Guys, great. Harold Baines is a fine ball player. Fine ball player. I don't mean any disrespect to Harold Baines at all. And he's just a face of this. There's plenty of other guys probably don't belong there. But Harold Baines, I can't think of anything he did better than any other player at any other point in his career. Many years he wasn't the best player on his own team. Some years he was. Hope you don't hear the cat. The cat just does not seem to want me to be on the show today. So anyway, let's move on. I only got half an hour, less than a half an hour, 25 minutes to touch on. You probably got plenty of time. You guys can think about your if you have any other questions you want, any other topics you want to bring up quick, because I'm going to talk quickly about college basketball and the NBA, and then we're going to move into hockey with Jim Biringer from Last Word on Hockey sometime around 10:30 if he's able to get here on time. If not, we'll stretch. The NCAA. What's going on with the NCAA? I had a vlog the other day, which I'll touch on a little bit, but the COVID continues to play havoc with the college schedule. Games being rescheduled right and left, or canceled. Michigan went on a 2-week shutdown. UConn just went on a 2-week shutdown. So it's playing havoc. And it's gonna be interesting come selection time. How did I get that up there? Oh, difference between Bonds, Clemens, and A-Rod vehemently denied it. Whatever. That's been Pete Rose's biggest thing too, and then he admitted it and he didn't get in. So again, I don't think whether they admit it or not is necessarily relevant to the conversation, to be honest with you. I don't care if they admitted it. I'd still put them in a Hall of Fame and say they did it. Then you can sue me for libel because it's on their printed plaque. I don't know. Let me move on here quick so I can cover these other topics and I can make sure I can share with the college and NBA sites. It's going to be tough for the selection committee this year because of so many game differential and games being played. Oh, we're live on Northeast Streaming Sports now, guys. So, uh, some of the points I wanted to bring up. I think, it's going to be interesting. That there's teams. This whole season has been such a weird aberration. That teams like Duke and North Carolina and Kentucky are not in the top 25. For the first time since I can remember, none of those teams are in the top 25. All of them are in danger of not making the tournament. Last bracketology thing I saw, Carolina was in. I don't think Duke or Kentucky was. I mean, you've got teams like Indiana, the three that I just mentioned. Rutgers, who was really good last year, Providence, Seton Hall, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, big here in the Northeast, obviously. All potentially in the outside looking in of the NCAA tournament. And, you've got some surprises in there, too. I mean, here's the thing. Gonzaga is the best team in the country. The mid-majors have really made up the difference, or really made up the and we're live in the UK. Hello, everybody in the UK. Gosh, I got a baseball group that I belong to in the UK. You guys make sure you watch the show because we just covered baseball. We're going to be covering baseball a lot more. Although we do a lot of baseball on Fridays. We do a lot of baseball interviews. So I've been sharing that to my friends in the UK and they've been very responsive. So welcome, everybody in the UK. We'll see how they like hockey in a few minutes. Gonzaga's still a mid-major, plays on a mid-major conference, but they're not a mid-major team anymore. They are a power, major power. And they changed the way things are looked at. But the mid-majors compete more than they ever have before. When I say mid-majors, I don't necessarily mean the mid-major leagues, but I mean, teams that were not necessarily power teams are known as historically great basketball schools. The Creightons of the world, I don't know, Minnesota, San Diego State, Evansville. I'm thinking of teams that in the recent past have done very well. And it's because guys stay around. They aren't one and done. I think that's it. I think the one and done thing is really kind of wearing out its welcome. Kentucky has not done well the last few years, and that's their whole model. Duke moved to that model. Carolina moved towards that model. Look where those schools are. Been a resurgence in some programs this year. UCLA, Texas, Michigan. We'll see how they come out, but they made a big jump in the polls last week as well. Houston, Tennessee, Louisville, all resurgent this year. I think that's good for basketball. Here's what I think is a problem, and I did a vlog on it the other day, so watch it. So I'll touch on it quickly. The NCAA tournament, very rigid in what the rules are going to be, the protocols are going to be. All the games are going to be played in Indiana. 5 different sites. You can only bring 34 people in your traveling party. Everybody's got to test 7 consecutive days negative to be able to go to Indiana. You got to travel by bus if you're within 350 miles. And you got to bring 3 buses for 34 people to be compliant in social distancing. I think there's only 31 at-large bids this year. Normally it's 32, I think. The Ivy League's not playing, so they don't have an automatic bid. But as we get closer to the college tournaments, my concern is, and I love the conference tournaments. I love them. It's a great week and a half of basketball leading up to the NCAA tournament, March Madness. But this year, with the protocols that the NCAA has in place, the more you move these guys around, I think the bigger problems you're going to run into or potentially run into, and teams not allowed to go. And I'm afraid that teams that feel like they're a lock for the NCAA tournament are going to opt out of their conference tournaments, which is not good. Let's just say, for instance, Gonzaga and Baylor, the top two teams in the country, decided not to play in their respective conference tournaments. Well, two at-large teams just lost an opportunity. So with that in mind, and again, knowing I love the conference tournament so much, I still think this year, the NCAA needs to step in quickly. And I'm only going to talk about this for a few minutes because I've got a whole vlog I did yesterday. Watch it. It's 14 minutes long. I think this year the NCAA needs to step in quickly and mandate that the conference, the season, regular season champions are the ones who get the automatic bids. Because if you don't, and at least go ahead with their conference tournaments if they want, they got to be compliant. The NCAA, I read you a couple of things. They've got a manifest of things that people have to comply with. So I really, really believe that they need to step up and say, look, at regular season champions, go to the tournament this year. Conference tournaments, have them if you want them. Be safe. But this is what we need to do because we can't take the chance out of, I don't know. Who knows how many teams? It will be a snowball effect probably if a couple of teams say, I'm not going. We're going to stay safe for the NCAA tournament. We know we're in. It's going to take away potential at-large bids for other schools. So, I think you got to be safe, and you got to be smart. And I think the NCAA needs to step up here before the conferences start doing their own things. I'm not saying you have to cancel the tournaments necessarily. It might be better to ensure the NCAA tournament happens. I don't think the NCAA wants a second year with no tournament. It would be devastating to the sport. A lot of money, TV money, gone by the wayside. So, just a couple of things to think about there. The local schools, meaning the schools that I'll be chatting about. I'll be doing continuing my guest shots on Mac and Jack on Fridays, and with football over, we're going to concentrate more on the Knicks. We're going to concentrate more on college basketball as a whole on that show, and we're going to talk about it more here as well. There'll be some emphasis maybe on the local schools. Locally right now, St. John's is starting to get it together a little bit, but they struggled early in the year. I thought they were going to be really good this year under Mike Anderson in his second year. It hasn't happened. Rutgers, after a really good year last year, has struggled out of the gate in the Big Ten, but they've started to right the ship a little bit. Seton Hall, again, was supposed to be a player in the Big East, and they're struggled. St. John's and Seton Hall are both kind of in the middle of the pack in the Big East. Iona, interesting story. Rick Pitino just came off a bout of COVID, but I think Rick Pitino, again, that's going to be a big story once college basketball gets something back to some kind of norm. Butch Lee, who I'm going to have on hopefully in March during the tournament, a great player at Marquette under Al McGuire, the year, especially the year they won the NCAA tournament in 1977. His son plays for actually St. Peter's. So I was hoping that we'd get to see him play Siena this year, but I don't think that's going to happen because of the fan situation. But Iona, St. Peter's, Siena's playing really good basketball in the MAC. Again, mid-major, not going to get two bids. Siena's got a really good shot at getting to the tournament. So, we're happy here in this part of the country. But there's some fans, blue blood fans here, and some of you guys speak up when I post this to your groups about the struggles of Kentucky, of North Carolina, of Duke, and some others, Syracuse. These programs that are historically year in and year out very good. I think a lot of it is, I mean, it could be a COVID situation. I think the one and done situation has affected these schools. I think the realignment, the Big East going away. The Big East is not what it was when Syracuse was there, when Georgetown was there. UConn came back now, but some great rivalries are lost. The ACC is a bloated mess in my mind. I think they need to consider, potentially realigning again and getting back to some semblance of where they were 10 years ago. But I think the same about college football, too. So take it for what it's worth. Let's jump to the NBA quick. We got 10 minutes before Jim comes in, and we'll talk a little bit if we need to before he comes in. But hopefully he'll be on time. As I said, he's playing hockey. Jim Biringer from The Last Word on Hockey. Trying to get them to join the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. So still hoping to see that happen. The NBA, what's going on? Nationwide, I mean, a couple of surprises. The Jazz now have won the Western Conference in the Western Division over the Lakers by a half game, I think. But that's a really good team. That's a team the Knicks beat this year, right? The Rockets have started to surge after trading James Harden. They've now won 5 in a row. They've gotten to 500. Toronto's struggling with not being able to play at home. If you don't know, they're playing all their home games in Tampa. And a team that, won the NBA title just 2 years ago is right now one of the worst teams in the league. On a more local or regional level, the Knicks and the Nets. The Nets have surprised me. The Nets have caught fire here recently. I think they won 5 in a row. I thought they would struggle with the big three they put in place. Excuse me. But James Harden has done what he said he would do, and he's facilitating the offense and keeping the offense moving, keeping the ball moving. Kyrie's come back and contributed, and again, not caused any problems yet. You know my feelings on Kyrie. And again, not to disparage any of the flat earthers out there, but I have trouble putting the faith of my team in a guy who believes the earth is flat. But you got a great player in Kevin Durant. Harden's a great player. Irving's a great player. The problem is you got one basketball, and they all, in their points in their career, have dominated the ball. So how they play off the ball is going to be very important to their success going forward. Right now it's working. They also got a coach, by the way, that was handpicked basically by the players and has no experience. We didn't talk about that in Steve Nash. So he's got a challenge in keeping these guys interested in and sharing the ball and putting together some kind of cohesive game plan where it's just 3 guys looking for isolation and holding the ball Carmelo Anthony style. Won't work. And you got to play some defense. So, and James Harden's certainly not known for his defense. So anyway, they're surprising me now. We'll see what happens in the long run here. I said all along, this team is a tremendous experience. It's either going to be very, very wildly successful, and they'll win the East and potentially win it all, or it'll just implode and go up in flames. I don't root against them. I'm a Knicks fan, but I don't root against them. I mean, good teams in New York are a good thing. The Knicks have continued their up and down ways. I mean, they had tough. As I said, they won 5 in a row after I touted them. They lost 3 in a row, and then they beat Boston, and they went on the road for 4 games and got off to a good start against Golden State last week, but then lost the last 3, and the last 2 were really ugly. And in fact, against Utah, they kind of they kind of quit for the first time all year. The thing that Thibodeau has brought to that team is a desire to compete, play hard, and that they kind of gave up in the Utah game, second half of the Utah game, and hopefully that was just an aberration and is not going to continue. So the Knicks are going to be up and down. The good thing about the Knicks, they won last night. They've moved to 9-11. They're probably going to hover around that 500 point all year. I think that would be very successful and continue to develop these kids. We talked about Randall and his stepping forward this year, and Thibodeau's done a great job with him. Barrett is playing better. Inconsistent still, but he's playing better. The kid who's really carried them last night against Cleveland was Quickly. He scored 20 more than 20 points in the fourth quarter last night. And he's done it a couple weeks, 2 of the last 3 games. He's really played well, especially late in the games. Thibodeau has resisted, replacing Peyton as the point guard. But I don't know how long he's going to be able to do it. He's not a big fan of kids to begin with, which is why he's brought in some of the veterans that he did. Like Burks and Peyton. But we'll see. I think he's going to have a hard time keeping Quickly out of that spot. I've been saying since preseason, this kid very well could be the answer to their point guard situation. And Kenny Payne was a great hire by Thibodeau. Kenny Payne was the assistant head coach at Kentucky under John Calipari for the last bunch of years. And there's a bunch of Kentucky kids on the team, including Quickly. And he has helped Quickly's development here early in the season tremendously. So Kenny Payne has been a major contributor to this team. There's a couple of worrisome signs, right? I mean, Toppin's been hurt, really hasn't been able to kind of get himself on track, get consistent minutes. There's been a short rotation for Thibodeau, and the minutes are starting to pile up for Randall and Barrett specifically. I think they're second and fourth in minutes played. And that's going to contribute to some of these meltdowns in the fourth quarter, which the Knicks have become famous for in the last 6 years. But it hasn't happened this year as much. And he needs to probably start getting it going a little deeper. Injuries have played into that, but he's got no faith in guys like Dennis Smith and Freddie. Gosh. Now, I can't even say his name. I shouldn't even try. Ntilikina. Let's try that. Ntilikina. I think I'm close. Smith wants to go play in the G League. The next G League team. He wants some playing time. And the Knicks might better send him there because he's going to be a trade chip, including Nikili, Kenny Knox. These are guys that the Knicks can use to bring in some more talent. Maybe for a playoff push here later in the year. And the other thing that worries me a little bit is some of the tweets that Mitchell Robinson had put out here in the last week or so. Well, they go back a little longer probably, but not happy with his role in the offense. He's playing really well. He's turned the ball over less. I just got a note from Jim Biringer. He needs like 5 or 10 minutes, so we'll stretch a little bit here. But he's talked about wanting to be more of a role in the offense. That's not his role on this team. Remarkably, he did not take a jump shot all last year. He broke Wilt Chamberlain's all-time shooting percentage record last year because all he did was, offensive rebounds and lobs. Shot 74% last year. Don't think he's taken any jump shots this year. He's never taken a three-point shot in his career. But during the offseason, he was being filmed with his high school coach, constantly taking three-pointers and jump shots. And he wants to be more involved that way, but that's not his role on his team. And if he gets frustrated, he took one of the posts down. You know, you don't need somebody wanting to, really expand their role where it's not needed. So that's where we're at with the NBA. We'll be diving deeper into that as we go along. As I said, we're waiting on my guest. My guest today will be Jim Biringer from The Last Word on Hockey. And I'll talk a little bit about hockey right now. All right. Sorry about that, guys. I took myself out of the meeting. I hope we're still here and we're still live. It looks like we are. That was hit the wrong button. That's the problem with using so much technology here. I can hit the wrong button easily, and I don't want to do that. So, big changes in hockey this year. We'll talk to Rick a little bit about that because of COVID. And, they finished their year in a bubble last year, but it wasn't feasible to play an entire season in a bubble. We'll talk to him. They've shortened the season. They've changed the divisions around a lot so that teams are playing in their region. And I think we'll talk to Jim about this. I know the Canadian teams are only playing the Canadian teams. And I think what's happening is they've got a Central, an East, a North, and a West. And I think they're playing all their games within those divisions, at least now. So we'll get some more information on that from Jim. I haven't really dived into the season a lot myself. Again, it's hard when the seasons are overlapping so badly right now with college football just ending, pro football, the Super Bowl coming up, basketball in full swing, college basketball in full swing, baseball's getting geared up for spring training. So. And unfortunately, I tend to be more of a fair weather fan, and I want to get away from that. I know Mac and Jack have talked recently when I've guested on their show, and I watched their show when I can, at least have it on listening. And they both, were people that got away from hockey and have really gotten back into it. And there's some hockey shows that are on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network that have been watching. There's a Ranger wrap-up show every week. We'll probably have them on to talk at some point. But Jim Biringer hosts The Last Word in Hockey. And hopefully we'll get him on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network here at some point. Because I do want to get into it. The Philly sports guy, by the way, Jamie Paggs. He's a huge hockey fan. Flyer fan. So I tend to be more of a fair weather fan. When the Rangers are doing well, I'm more into it. And the Rangers, man, are not doing well. We'll talk a little bit with Jim about that, and go from there. I mean, right now, the teams that are doing really well are the teams you would probably expect to be doing fairly well. And we'll talk to him more about surprises and whatnot. The Panthers are playing well in the Central. The Lightning are playing well in the Central. The defending champion Lightning. The Central's got a lot of good teams. In the East, the Capitals have played well. Not surprisingly. The Flyers off to a great start. And if you watch the Northeast Streaming Sports Network and catch the Philly sports guy, you'll know when they're doing well. The Bruins are doing well. Maple Leafs off to a great start in the North. Canadians, I talked in we had a breakout meeting from one of our meetings at work. The parent company that I work for is located in Montreal. And I think that one of the guys that I ended up in a breakout room, we do this little thing since there's and the companies are spread out all over the North America and in Europe. China. But we do these breakout rooms now. I end up with a fan, a Montreal fan. He's in Nova Scotia, I think he lives, but he's a huge Canadians fan, and he's happy with the start that they're off to. And then out west, you got the Avalanche of Colorado and Vegas. Vegas has been a great story, you know, with where they've become in just a few years. I mean, they were nowhere, and all of a sudden went to the championship here a few years ago. Rick said he watched the little affiliate sports guy the other day. He's a character, Rick, right? I mean, I love him. I've been on the show, on Mac and Jack's show with him a few times, and he is passionate about his sports. He does things I wouldn't do. I mean, he paints his face. He does some live remotes on TikTok, which is a platform I haven't tried to get on yet. I mean, they do all short. You know, you can only have like 1 minute videos, but he does these live shots from a bar. And I guess his group was too loud one night and he got asked to leave and whatnot. But he does a lot of fun stuff. And by the way, the Philly sports guy, I believe, is going to be one of the guys we have on site next Sunday. He's going to the Super Bowl in Tampa. So just to touch on this quickly while we're waiting on Jim Biringer. Byron Williams, who covers the NFL and is an ex-NFL player for the Giants and the Eagles, will be in Florida, I believe, and there's going to be an attempt to get some players on and whatnot. But we're going to talk to Byron a lot about. He also has a organization that he runs that helps underprivileged kids, which is a great cause. Byron is doing some work that I wish, I did more of. And I always make the excuse of who has the time, but it's really shouldn't come into the equation. So we're going to have some great guys on next Sunday, guys. So 3 hours, I'll be on with Mac and Jack and Robert Butler live. And then we'll have the Philly sports guy on location, I believe, the last I heard, in Florida, and Byron Williams as well. It's going to be a fun show. It's going to be a fun Super Bowl. So I know we're off the hockey topic a little bit here, but I'm trying to stretch a little bit before Jim gets in here. He had just texted me a few minutes ago that he needed about 5 or 10 minutes, so that we should be coming up on that. Okay. Let me just text him real quick. And I'm looking for him to pop up here. So, anyway, gonna be a great show. Hope you guys will tune in. I'm still working on simulcasting it to the TGI Sports Talk page so that we can see your comments and answer your questions as best we can. I don't know if I can. I'll be able to address each one like I try to do on Sundays and have the same interaction, but I hope to. It's going to be a lot of fun, though. So either if you just tune in and watch on my page, that's great. But if you go to, I know if you go to TGI Sports, not TGI Sports Talk, but Mac Sports, and I'll post these when I post during the week, some more promos for it, or even Northeast Streaming Sports. Watch there. It'll be a great show, 3 hours. Rick says, Jamie is a character, as are most of their fans. He's very passionate, man. He is all over the Philly sports scene, the Eagles, and he's smart too. He's not just he's not just, and again, I'm probably doing Fireman Ed a disservice by comparing him to him, but he's really, really smart about what's going on in the world of sports in Philadelphia and in general. Got some interesting thoughts on the Eagles. And he certainly has some great feedback on the Flyers and the Sixers as well. So he's all in on his city's sports scene. So can't have too many of those guys. It's a lot of fun. Coming up here too on TGI Sports Talk, we're going to have Roger Weiland and Ken Schott on doing my Super Bowl preview. Super we're at on Friday. That'll be live at 8 a.m. Eastern time, so make sure you tune in then. And we've got Doug DeCinces coming up in February. I'm still working on some guests past February 12th. Doug DeCinces was a tremendous third baseman with the Orioles and the Angels in the 70s and 80s. He's agreed to come on, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. You know, this whole Northeast Streaming Sports Network, as I mentioned, has really been a boost in just a couple of weeks to all of us that have joined. I mean, I've done some other things. I've gotten to the point where I've got 10,000 views to my shows a week, and that's tremendous. And they're all over the place. All over the place. They're in the States. They're in South America. They're in Canada. They're in the UK. They're all over Europe. I mean, not 100 people in China, but I got a bunch of people in the UK because I joined a baseball group in the UK. They're all Major League Baseball fans. And they've been eating up the interviews that I do on Fridays. They love the nostalgic. I think we really hit a niche with that. I mean, not every single week is that. Like I said, this week is going to be Roger Weiland and Ken Schott will be previewing the Super Bowl. But a lot of the stuff has been these guys who've played ball back in my days learning about sports. And I think it's been a lot of fun doing that. And the whole deal with Northeast Streaming Sports has really played in to the fact that we're all gaining followers pretty quickly. I found some other ways to do it too, but that's been a big part of it. So I see Jim has jumped in the room here. I see him getting himself centered on his camera a little bit. Or you want to get a little more centered there. I'm going to bring you in a second. So again, Jim Biringer is the host of The Last Word on Hockey, and hopefully I have that right. And his show airs on Mad Radio, the Mad Radio Network here on Facebook, and hopefully we can maybe get him on Nessup here soon. So with that, let me bring in Jim Biringer.
Hey, what's going on? Can you hear me okay?
I can. How are you?
I'm good. Just got done with a little skate this morning. Felt really good. Sorry I'm a little late. So
you guys keep score? Did you win?
It's just fun pickup hockey on Sunday. You just get a little exercise in.
So our goal is to go there, have some fun, not get hurt.
Exactly. That's the goal.
Excellent. So you and I chatted a little bit. I've been stretching a little bit, but I have the show right. The Last Word on Hockey. Am I right with that?
That is correct. The Last Word on Hockey on the Mad Radio Network on Facebook. We just had our episode 3, season 2 last night. We talked about the Central Division. Coach Jay was back from assignment, so we got him in on the Line A talk and Dubois talk. So we broke down the trade a little bit more, how it helps Columbus. We're seeing how they were playing since they didn't know the trade, looking at all the teams, where they would finish, the goalies, since Coach Jay's a big goalie guy.
Good. That's good. That's one of my questions today. Because what I want to do, I think, with you today, Jim, since we're just jumping into the hockey season, is kind of get an overall picture of what the NHL is doing this year and kind of your views of, where you see things playing out in the individual divisions. So I had prefaced this conversation with the fact that the NHL has made some radical changes because of COVID. They've changed the divisions around and how the schedule's playing out. So why don't you touch on that a little bit and update us on what they've done there?
So for those who haven't been following, the big reason why the NHL had to go to 4 divisions, or as I like to say, 4 leagues within the league, is because of COVID-19 and the Canadian border. So they were trying to figure out a way to see maybe if they could cross border. But once you knew the Blue Jays couldn't do it, Raptors were playing down in Tampa. They're like, all right, well, we're either going to have to bring the team, find 7 homes for the Canadian teams down in the United States, or we're just going to have a North Division or a Canadian division. So they settled on that. They settled on a 56-game season, which, I mean, I hope they get 56 games in. I've always been a proponent of 48, maybe points percentage, see where it goes, how bad COVID is. But 56-game season, we have 4 divisions. In the North, obviously all the Canadian teams. The East, pretty much as I like to call the bus division. Everybody can bus or plane, take the train. Central, and then the West division with Minnesota mixed in there somehow. But it's just a really good way of doing it, trying to keep everything not too complicated, but keeping the travel as close to everybody as possible, so we're not crisscrossing flights and going cross country as we saw in the NBA, where that led to some breakouts.
Yeah, definitely. So is the schedule now specifically they're playing within their own division? That's it.
That's correct. It's similar to a baseball schedule. So you're going to have like a series against the team. Like right now, the Devils are in Buffalo today. So they've played 2 games against Buffalo. They were there yesterday. They're again there today. They just played 2 against the Flyers, 2 against the Islanders. They started with 2 against the Bruins. So It's like a mini series. Like down the line, I know I've seen like Anaheim, for instance, going to play like LA 4 times in a row. Devils and Rangers meet 4 times in April. That's the way the schedule is. It just builds rivalries. And for this season, I'm all for it. It's fun, and it reminds me of like the old school stuff.
It is a little different. You're right. It does kind of harken back to the original 6 days a little bit, right? So, and does the NHL, have they left themselves wiggle room so later in the year, if the COVID situation changes, they can adjust the schedule, or is it set in stone for the entire season?
I think the big word everybody's been talking about is flexibility. I do believe they have like a week or 2 in between when the playoffs start to the end of the regular season where they can make up some games if they needed to, if it really mattered in the standings for a team to make the playoffs or not. Obviously, everybody knows that they have to be done by the middle of July. Hopefully maybe a little sooner, the way maybe series play out, because obviously Summer Olympics, if they happen, is a big thing because of NBC, and they need to be on, they have to be on NBC, so they might be relegated to USA or Peacock Network. So you want to get the season in as quickly as possible. So I definitely think they're going to figure out a way to, maybe play games at the end. But right now, as we saw with the Central, with Dallas at the beginning of the year with a COVID situation, Carolina had some. They're trying to cram in like 52 games in like 100 days. It's ridiculous the way they're doing it. But I think eventually they're going to have to figure out a way to maybe back end it a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 games here and there if it really matters for playoffs, like I said.
Yeah, and come the playoffs, is the plan to go to a bubble for the playoffs? How's that going to work?
I really don't know right now. That's an honest answer. I think ideally they would probably like to be in a bubble to do it because it worked. We saw it in the summer hub tournament, the Stanley Cup playoffs. It really worked. But the thing is, the way the playoffs are set up, you play within your own division, and then you go to the conference or semifinals and then the finals. So ideally, right now, they don't really have to because they have their own bubbles for each division until they get to the conference finals. So that's when they're going to have to figure out where, because we're guaranteed a Canadian team to be in the conference final. So you have to see, okay, is the border going to be open? Are they going to cross? Are they just going to play in the U.S.? Are they going to move the bubble? It all depends on COVID, really. That's the big thing. Like, that's way down the line. Right now, they're trying to get through. Like, Chicago canceled practice yesterday. Players are on the COVID list. So it's just developing each day. You're going to have postponements. Vegas just had a couple of games postponed because of COVID. So, they're not in a bubble now. So this is what we expect.
Excellent. So that's a very good overview. I appreciate that. I think it validated and also gave me some new information that I wasn't aware of. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So again, since we're looking at we're trying to look at the season, and the big picture of the season, let's kind of just go through the divisions a little bit and kind of. I guess you can talk about where they're at so far, but how do you see these divisions playing out as we go forward? And I'll just go from the top of my ESPN standings list here, which starts with the Central.
For me in the Central, it's good because that's actually a perfect segue because, like I said yesterday, we talked about the Central a lot, so it's right on the top of my head.
Cool.
For me, the top 2 teams in that division are the Tampa Bay Lightning, the defending Cup champs. I don't know. I think right now they're maybe on the outside of the top 4, or they're just at the 4 spot. But to me, Tampa Bay, they're the champs until somebody beats them. That's how I feel about college football standings. That's how I feel about any power rankings you're going to do. The champs are the champs until you beat them. That's where they belong. And I feel, even with Kucherov out, they have still too many weapons. Stamkos, Vasilevsky in the back end, Hedman, Point. They're really good. Dallas, to me, really good. Another really good team in that division. They were in the final last year, lost to Tampa. Pavelski, you got Hudobin playing well. Garionov is doing his thing. And it's weird because last year they really weren't an offensive team, but when they got to the bubble, they started pumping in goals left and right, and it's carried over into this season. So they're a really good team. Don't sleep on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Elvis Merzlikins and Giannis Korpisalo, great duo in that division. Tortorella, if Rangers fans listening in, you guys know about him.
I do.
He plays a certain system. Anybody who knocks this team, they work hard. They're going to grind. Adding Line A on that power play, he's going to be pumping in goals. Roslovic was a great ad, so don't sleep on the Blue Jackets. And to me, I like Nashville, but I don't love them in that division because their weakness down the middle, and I don't know about Rene and Saros through 56 games. To me, the team is the Carolina Hurricanes. I like what Rod Brind'Amour is doing. Obviously, right now they're at the bottom of the standings because they only played 3 games, which is unfair to them. But they're a good team. Teravainen, Sebastian Aho in the goal. They got Mrazek, Reimer. How they can do it. Rod the Bod, Rod Brind'Amour, the coach. He's solid. So I like. Those are my teams in the Central. I mean, maybe somehow Nashville figures it out, but I just don't see it. They're weak down the middle, and Detroit and Chicago are just rebuilding right now. And Florida, Florida is just so weird. They could look good one night, look the other night. So, I mean, those are my teams I'm going to go with.
Good. And let's move on to the East. So that's where my Rangers are, and they're really stinking it up.
Man, East Division so tough. I think it's the toughest division in all of the NHL this year. Just so many good teams, especially at the top. I did an East preview at Last Word on Hockey. We did one at Last Word on Sports, and so tough picking this division. To me, Washington, what they did without Ovi and Kuznetsov and Samsonov. I mean, Washington's just rolling. Boston is Boston. They're playing really well. They look really good too. I mean, they ran into Capitals, but and then you have Philadelphia, who's everybody loved them too, and I'm liking the way they're playing. Carter Hart, Brian Elliott, really good. They didn't have Konechny last night, but Giroux, Voracek. So many guys. They have Lindholm just came back from cancer, so they got deep. They're probably one of the deepest teams in that division, and the 4th spot, could go anywhere. You could look at, obviously probably not Buffalo or the Devils. I'm gonna throw that out right there. Those 2 teams probably not gonna be fighting for 4th, but they could play spoiler for somebody. So that leaves me Pittsburgh. That leaves me the Rangers. That leaves me the Islanders. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on in Pittsburgh. Obviously, Jim Rutherford stepping down as a general manager, personal reasons. There's a little bit more behind that. And you have the Rangers, who's everybody's darling coming into the season. I think it's a slow start. Don't want to overreact right now, but they're playing well. They picked up a point against Pittsburgh. And then there's the Islanders, and man, it's Barry Trotz has them playing a certain way, like Tortorella, and they're playing playoff hockey in a 56 game. I don't know if it'll take them to grind it out. The problem with the Islanders is they can stop goals and they can defend well. I don't know how much they can score. I'm not sold on Pittsburgh as a playoff team. Their defense scares me. You saw it when Murray and Jari were there last year. The defense is just not the same. They're older. The core is older. I think they just miss. I'm going to put the Islanders at the 4th spot. The Rangers will be battling there. The problem is it's 3 teams bound for 1 spot. It's so tough, that division.
You do see the Rangers being able to rebound and compete for a spot?
I think so, yes, absolutely. I think they have the team to do it. Again, it's all about expectations. coming in and how a young team handles expectations. Look, Vancouver started off slow. Now they're starting to figure it out. They beat a really good Winnipeg team last night. So I think they got time. Quinn's a good coach. They'll figure some things out. Lafreniere's got the monkey off his back with the goal. They have good pieces there. Panarin, Zibanejad. The defense is there. The goaltending is solid. So I wouldn't panic just yet. It's still too early. And I think if you're overreacting now, you got to wait. Because, again, there was no preseason. So you have to treat the beginning of the season like a preseason.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave our neighbors to the north to the last. Let's jump out west. And how do you foresee playing out there?
Out west, let's see. Colorado, Vegas, St. Louis. That's right down the middle. Those three teams right there are really good. They're just Colorado's probably the deepest team besides Vegas in that division. St. Louis is unbelievable as well. They're playing really well. Bennington's bouncing back. Vegas, Mark Stone, Pacioretty, all those guys. It's funny, Vegas. The thing with Vegas is they were the lovable misfits the first year in. No one expected much. They would go all the way to deep run. But now they're transforming into this evil empire where they're bringing everybody in. Everybody wants to play there and they want to be this cup contender. And give credit to Bill Foley. He said within 5 years of the franchise, they're going to have a Stanley Cup. So you never know. Colorado, it's weird. They start off slow, but now they're figuring it out. And then it comes down to, okay, well, San Jose is not making the playoffs. The California teams, LA, Anaheim, they're going to fight every night. They took it to St. Louis, took it to Colorado. They're going to pick up their wins. They're going to play some spoiler. I don't see one of those teams making it. So that leaves me, Minnesota and Arizona?
Yeah.
I'm not really sold on the Coyotes or goaltending, defense. So that puts Minnesota in the 4th spot. And the Wild are pretty good. So I think they could figure out a way to get in there in a tough division. Look, you're going to be playing, LA, San Jose, Anaheim a bunch of times. I know you're going to play the big boys a lot, but if you can sneak some points in, I think that's the way to do it. I think those are my 4 teams out west.
Excellent. So that leaves us our friendly Canadian neighbors, the Northern Division. How do you see that? It is exciting kind of to see these teams playing one another every night.
I as an American fan, even though I watch the East a lot because of the Devils and I try to watch a lot of games, I'm always focusing on the North. I'm just throw games on because Toronto's playing Montreal or they're playing Calgary, somebody. So as I posted on the TGI Sports Talk last weekend, we did the North Division preview on Last Word on Hockey. Montreal was the clear-cut favorite to win the division, or finish top 2, whatever, however you look at it. Montreal Canadiens, deepest team. They're fast. Mark Bergevin filled needs. I'm going to be interested to watch the Anderson injury to see how long he's going to be out because he was scoring. They added to Foley, Edmondson, Allen. They did really good. Toronto, to me, they looked good last night against Edmonton, though they lost in overtime. But Freddie Anderson's playing well. Matthews, Marner, Nylander. That list goes on. A superstars, Tavares. Everybody knows from the island. Calgary, don't sleep on the Flames. I tell everybody that they played well last night. They're getting their edge back. They're hungry. They got Markstrom in net, Kachuk, Goudreau from the New Jersey area, Lindholm. You have Monahan, Mark Giordano on the back end. So they're a team to watch. Don't sleep on those Flames. And it's between 2 teams for me because Ottawa is Ottawa and they're rebuilding and they're the 7th team to me. So that leaves Edmonton, Vancouver, and Winnipeg. So I'm not sold on the Oilers defense and their goaltending. They had a chance to upgrade their goaltending position and they didn't do it in offseason. And Koskinen and Smith just scare me. And I don't think their defense is good enough to hold up to make the playoffs. And that's bad for Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. So Winnipeg and Vancouver. Vancouver, like I said, they got Besser. They got Pedersen starting to find his game. Horvat. They're figuring it out. And Demko in net. And then there's Winnipeg, who will get Dubois soon. They're playing well. Stasny's in addition. Andrew Kopp's playing well. Blake Wheeler, Connor. I'm going to put the Winnipeg Jets in the 4th spot. I really like that. And they got a good goaltender in Connor Hellenbeck, the reigning Vezina Trophy winner. So those are my 4 teams up north.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, so I got to ask you, after this all plays out, who's going to face off in the Stanley Cup Championship?
Man,
And
put me
who's
on a
gonna win?
spot. Man, put me on a spot. I mean, I would love to say the Montreal Canadiens are going to win this thing, but I don't know if that's realistic. It's off the board. It's different. I know because everybody I see picks like the thing is though the way it works out in the conference finals, you could have like 2 West teams play for the Cup, or 2 Eastern teams play for the Cup. The way the crossover works, so it'll be interesting. I mean, I want to put. If this was traditional, it's easy to go East West.
Yeah.
So many good teams. I'm going to put, yeah, you know what? For fun, just for fun, I'm going to put the Montreal Canadiens in the Stanley Cup final. I think they have the team to go all the way. They really do. Price and Allen and what the needs they did. And then who are they facing? I think they're going to face off against the Vegas Golden Knights.
Nice. Interesting.
Golden Knights. I like the way they're playing. I like they have a good goaltending duo too. It's something different. You know what? Put me on a spot on this. Like I said, it'll be the storyline. If they were able to cross the border, Pat's ready going back to Montreal, facing his old team for Stanley Cup. It would be kind of a fun storyline to follow.
Yeah.
So yeah, something different. Canadians, Golden Knights. Why not?
Cool. Who's going to win?
Montreal. Absolutely.
I knew that. I knew you were going to say that.
In Montreal, absolutely. I want to see. The thing is, I'm born in the U.S., but I would love to see Canadian team hoist the cup. It's been since '93 since it's happened. Montreal was the last team to do it. So I have a lot of friends that are big Canadiens fans. So it would be nice to see Montreal lift the cup.
Yeah, my company in the real world is owned by a Montreal-based company. So we have a lot of Canadian employees, and there's a lot of Montreal fans. There's a lot of Ottawa fans. So it's
it's fun.
Really nice to see them have some success. So give me a little idea. So again, you got to have a crystal ball, and these are probably you can't give me 1 or 2 guys, but give me some guys you see competing for the Conn Smythe Trophy this year. Who award, I should say.
Conn Smythe if you go Stanley Cup playoffs, a guy like Mark Stone, obviously you got to keep your eye on. Really good. He probably would have won it last year. Vegas probably went deep. He was putting up points. Look at the back ends. You always look at a guy like Pietrangelo, just came over to Vegas. He's a good player to look at. The goalie's always priced. Leonard, Fleury, Allen, one of those guys, whoever's got the hot hand. Maybe Shea Weber at Montreal. Like a guy like Tyler Toffoli, he's been on a scoring streak for Montreal. If they get there, he's going to be a factor. If, maybe trying to think, Anderson, if he stays healthy. And then you maybe down the middle, maybe a guy like, Kakaniemi or Suzuki, one of those guys. Maybe Drouin finds his scoring touch again. He's having a fun season this year. So, guys like that. That's what I would look for. And, it's future. It hasn't happened yet. So, but it'd be tough.
Yeah. And I guess you give me your top guys for the Vezina Trophy are kind of listed in your analysis there, I'm assuming.
Yeah, the Vezina guys, normal, Vasilevsky, Hallenbeck, Price, guys like that. Rask, guy's a sleeper pick to me to win it. He's always keeps the Bruins in games. For some reason, Boston fans, I don't know, they get on him for some reason. He's been a really good goalie for Boston for years now, take him to 2 cup finals. I don't know what they have against this guy, but he's really good goaltender, and I would put him as a dark horse to me. I would put him as a dark horse to win it.
And Coach of the Year is a little hard to kind of pick because you got to see how things play out. But the
weird thing about Coach of the Year is last year it was the Boston coach, Bruce Cassidy, who got it. Usually it goes to the coach that turns the team around. So I thought like guy like Tortorella or Paul Maurice should have got it because the way they got their teams, how much they lost in the offseason prior to last season and keeping their teams in the playoff race, and they both made the playoff bubble, playing round. I thought like Maurice or Tortorella, a guy like that, should have won it.
I feel like Tortorella always has a strike against him that he doesn't get.
Yeah, no, the media
considered. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Don't
media
like
doesn't like him.
No, he's always had that on his back. So let me ask you a couple of questions before we let you go, just to follow up on the Pittsburgh situation. Is there anything more that you have to add to the GM stepping down? Do you have more solid information on that or not?
So a couple of things on the Pittsburgh situation that I was able to talk to somebody about. So one, it appeared that Jim Rutherford had put a trade in or tried to trade Chris Letang to a team up north, tried to acquire a younger defenseman. However, there was some issues with management, and they felt that Malkin, Crosby, and Letang should retire as Penguins because they're the cornerstone of what happened. So that was probably part of the situation. Obviously, if people know, there's a lawsuit going on with the Penguins, former AHL players suing the team for what happened. So, I mean, I don't think Rutherford was involved in that, but that could wear on you because if you're hearing about it all the time, you could step down. It looked like, to me, it's a nice way of saying, we're going to part ways mutually because of, differences somewhere.
Yeah.
But don't be surprised if Jim Rutherford comes back into, the hockey world.
And is that job in Pittsburgh an attractive job for a good candidate?
Yeah, I definitely think somebody's going to want that. I mean, Tom Fitzgerald's been linked to the job. Unfortunately, Devils fans are like, okay, why? He's under contract for a year. I wouldn't be shocked if he's going to stay with New Jersey. I doesn't think the Devils are going to want him to interview for that job because if he were to interview for the job, I think he would get it. But he signed a 1-year deal. It's weird. His contract is a long-term contract with the team, but he's only 1 year as general manager. So that tells me they're going to try to find another general manager unless he keeps doing the job he's doing. Also, they see him in their future. So Tom Fitzgerald and the Devil, I think he's staying with the Devils. I mean, guys have been linked like John Ferguson Jr., former Leafs general manager. Ron Hextall has been linked. But the former Penguin guy that was in there that was in Buffalo, Jason Botterill. But the guy that's there, Patrick Alvin, is he's comparable. He's scouted. He knows the team pretty well, so he's going to get a shot. But I wouldn't be shocked to see if they bring somebody in from the outside to run that organization.
All right, cool. One last question I have for you. I'll let you go today, Jim, and I don't even know if you can answer it for me, but it's something that always bugs me. It's come up when I guessed on the Mac and Jack show talking about the Knicks. And the Knicks and the Rangers have the same owner.
Yeah.
And while the Rangers haven't, been winning a Stanley Cup year after year, obviously, they have been competitive. They have, put a good product on the court or on the ice, unlike the Knicks putting a good, consistent product on the court in the last dozen years. Why does it? And again, the feeling in the Knick world is the owner is a big problem, and guys won't come here and play or coach. I mean, do you have a feeling of why it doesn't translate to the hockey the same way, or doesn't seem to anyway?
Because James Dolan doesn't know anything about the Rangers or hockey. He just
he doesn't know anything about basketball either. By the way,
no, he doesn't know anything about basketball. But he's letting the people he hires run the team. He's not trying to be Jerry Jones. Like with the Knicks, he's trying to be like Jerry Jones.
Right.
But in the hockey world, he's letting them do their thing, and it's like they put that fan letter out a couple years ago, letting him know, hey, we're going through this rebuild. This is what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna do it. But he doesn't get involved in it because you're gonna hire the best people for the position, and you're gonna let them do their job. And that's what they're doing with the Rangers. They're drafting well. They're hiring the right people, hiring the right coaches, developing, doing the things the right way, and he's just sticking his nose out of the out of the Rangers business and the management business because it's the right thing to do because the Rangers, I mean, for a while there, the Rangers wouldn't make the playoffs and whatever, but now they're a good team.
Yeah.
And they're just letting management do their thing. And that's what you need to do because that's why you hire these people to run your team and you can just sit and collect money.
Well, I surely wish that James Dolan would talk to the James Dolan that owns the Knicks and say, just butt out and let your
What
people do their jobs.
exactly? What's the old saying? Jerry Jones, the owner, should fire Jerry Jones, the general manager, down
Exactly.
in Dallas. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, that's the way he should do it. But hey, look, Rangers fans. I mean, it is the same owner, but you know what? They have a good product on the ice. Be proud of it because they got a good young team and they're going to be competitive.
Well, I'm always excited when the Rangers. Again, I think I told you when we talked on the phone, I'm always more invested in hockey when the Rangers are good. So I really hope that they kind of rebound and we get something to watch. Although I have to say, and I guess I'll end it with this because I want your thoughts on this. Hockey has got to tremendously miss Doc Emmerich because I have thought Doc Emmerich was the best play-by-play man in all of sports. Any sport you want to throw at me, nobody can surpass Doc Emmerich.
Yeah, Doc Emmerich is a man. Mike Doc Emmerich, former, he was did NBC forever. He did national TV. He was the Devil's voice for a long, long time on TV. Great announcer for hockey. I can listen to Doc all day. It's like I grew up going to Vermont a lot, so we had CBC, so I could hear Bob Cole in my head calling a game. It's like Doc Emmerich calling a game for me. He is so good at what he does. Funny Doc Emmerich story. So the first time I met Doc Emmerich was at a Devil game. I was young, and I was just hitting up, at the Brendan Byrne Arena. They were coming down in intermission. I was sitting online to use the men's room, and who do I see behind me? Is Doc Emmerich. We just started talking, and then go in, come back out, and we just went up to his TV, thing. We kept talking, chatting about the game, and yeah, such a nice guy. Really knows the game, really loves the game, and he's going to be missed, for sure. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing, you find these announcers that can call your team, call your sport, and you got to just love what they're doing. And, it's like Al Michaels with football. He does a great job.
I think Doc could have called any sport and done well. I really do.
I mean, I think he called a Pirates game once.
He did. It was a big deal a few years ago.
Yeah, he's a big Pirates guy. So that was really cool. I actually found the feed for it. I was like, oh, that Doc's calling the game. So that's really cool.
It was. Listen, Jim, I appreciate you coming on. Again, my guest has been Jim Biringer from The Last Word on Hockey on Mad Radio Network. Make sure you tune in and check it out. He does share the shows mostly to TGI Sports Talk. Maybe we'll see him on the NESUB Network at some point. I hope
so.
We're talking about that, so hopefully we'll see you. And again, we'll have you back on from time to time to update us on where we are during this hockey season.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure to have me on. Thank you so much, Keith. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on. Have a great Sunday.
You too. Bye.
Rest up those hockey bones.
Definitely.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, guys. So there we are, diving into hockey today with Jim Biringer from The Last Word on Hockey. I thank him for coming on today. I thank all of you guys for staying with me so long. We went a little long today, but we covered a lot of territory, guys. I appreciate everybody who's been on, everybody that will share this. Again, we are growing leaps and bounds, having fun, and we're going nowhere, man. And next week, our guest is going to be, whoa. All right, good enough. I guess that's for Roger Weiland and Ken Schott. We will be talking about a Super Bowl between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 8 a.m. Eastern Time, right here on TGI Sports Talk. Don't miss us. And in the meantime, I'm Keith Engel, your host, every Friday, every Sunday. Check out my vlogs. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for watching. Go to TGI Sports Talk. Like and follow the show. Go to Northeast Streaming Sports. Like and follow the show. We'll see you soon. Have a great Sunday, guys.
You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host, Keith Engel, on Northeast Streaming Sports.